All right, good evening, everyone. How are we all doing tonight? Isn't this the most perfect night for an outdoor event? To talk about public safety before we have any weather that's inclement. It's nice and warm, it's comfortable outside. I want to thank everyone for being here. It's wonderful to be together. And thank you for congregating together for a really excellent cause to learn more about public safety and what we are doing, what we can be doing, and what we will do in Cupertino to ensure that public safety is something that serves us well and doesn't maximize its potential impact on us on very critical moments. One thing I want to point out is that Cupertino has an incredibly good record with regard to being able to optimize our efforts to ensure public safety response. And I think in the last year and a half, there cannot be a better example than through our city administration, which very wisely, very prudently decided in the interest of being able to respond to an earthquake, to be able to make sure that our employee base could continue to serve the city of Cupertino seamlessly in the event of something like an earthquake. And so when the pandemic hit, completely unexpectedly, of course, Cupertino was right at the forefront of being able to be prepared in emergency conditions because we were prepared for that earthquake, for the big one that might hit and force us to go into remote work very quickly. And so never feel like something is irrelevant or not immediate, because you just never know where that effort might be able to become useful later. So everyone, welcome back to the City of Cupertino Public Safety Forum. It's just so wonderful to have everyone here. I'm Mayor Darcy Paul. I'm joined today by a few of my other council members, or at least a couple. We have Councilmember Kitty Moore here. Thank you for being here, Councilmember Moore. We have Councilmember Hung Wei as well. And I want to thank the Public Safety Commission for hosting this event. The Commission has paid special attention over the last year to recognize the toll that COVID-19 has taken on all of us by acknowledging both the mental health awareness and domestic violence awareness. So thank you very much for being very aware of how the sheltering in place and all the various impacts of COVID have potentially adversely affected our social situation, on our domestic situation. And I want to thank the entire Public Safety Commission for being here tonight. We have our Public Safety Chair, Hymanan Nalor, so please give a wave. Thank you, Hymanan. We have Eric Shan, our Vice Chair of the Public Safety Commission. Yvonne Chow. We have ALN Reddy, as well as Tiffany Wong. So wonderful work that you're doing. Please keep up the great efforts. The Public Safety Forum has long served as a venue for our community to connect directly to our public safety heroes. And we are incredibly grateful for the work of our Sheriff's Office and our Fire Department. I see our Sheriff's Captain is here today. Let's give a big wave to Captain Urena. And we have members of our Fire Department. Thank you for being here tonight with us as well. And of course, you're bringing forward a lot of topical conversation to our community this evening, and we thank you for that. Public safety remains one of the city's top priorities and the City Council's top priorities. If you can see in everything that the council is doing, we're trying to ensure that we have safe bike lanes, for instance. We announced the McClellan Road improvements lately. We want to make sure that no matter what we do it honestly and with integrity, and a lot of that is grounded in public safety concerns. So I think that's really something that people from the outside look in on Cupertino, and whether they acknowledge it or whether they don't explicitly acknowledge it, they realize that we're doing that work. So thank all of you for putting that forward. In Cupertino, our community gets involved, and we thank you for the impact our volunteers have made, including the Citizen Corps, the block leaders, and our youth in various areas. I was very pleased to be able to have the Crest Awards here last week, where we gave a Lifetime Achievement Award to Jim Oberhofer, one of our many citizen volunteers that give of their time to make sure that we have a safer community. So this is just a wonderful conglomeration of effort, and so excellent job done. The last 18 months, of course, have been trying for all of us, as we've made sacrifices to help protect our families, and to protect each other. Cupertino, in fact, when you look at the rates of COVID per 100,000 people, actually by a fairly significant amount from start to right now has had the very lowest rates. And we've had some of the highest, if not the highest rates of vaccination in Santa Clara County. I think that it also very much speaks to the ethos, the values, and the approach of people in our community. So tonight, I'm very pleased, as mentioned before, to have a couple of guest presenters from both the Sheriff's Office and the Fire Department. So thank you very much. The Sheriff's Office will be talking about recent crime trends, and we'll be presenting some tips on personal safety. The Fire Department will present ZoneHaven and our community planning for potential evacuations. I'm very pleased to have the organization WomenSV here tonight to acknowledge Domestic Violence Awareness Month for October. We have the Wildfire Awareness Initiative, or WAI, and that's a group of middle schoolers from Kennedy Middle School who are making an impact on that particular aspect of public safety. And finally, we have the Santa Clara County Public Health Department to provide an update and outlook on COVID-19. And I know that that's something that, of course, has been permeating everything that we've been affected by for the last year and a half. And hopefully, knock on wood, we're going to be emerging out of the woods fairly soon on that. But as we emerge from this last 18 months of COVID-19, we're very pleased to also acknowledge the fact that we've been able to receive assistance from the state, about $1 million recently in funding to enhance public safety coordination and service. And for that, I think that we should acknowledge the work of Assemblymember Evan Lowe in making sure that the West Valley cities have that funding and the wherewithal to be able to proceed on those grounds. So thank you, Assemblymember Lowe, for the very extensive amount of effort and lobbying that he did to increase that amount of funding to the very significant funding amount that we have in the West Valley for each and every one of our cities. I think originally it was a much lower amount, something more in the low six figures. We will support our small businesses in preparing for the next disaster, just like we prepare all across the board to be prepared for any number of disasters, and they might be able to cross-coordinate, for instance. And we're going to try to make sure that we have coordination between the West Valley cities. And so this funding from the state is not just funding for Cupertino, it's $7 million in funding for all of the West Valley cities. So it really works quite effectively together. Should a wildfire or any type of disaster occur, Cupertino will have the capability to coordinate that regional response. So it's a good idea to start thinking not just about doing well within our community, but about the interconnections that we can create with the other West Valley cities for us, Campbell, Saratoga, Los Gatos, Montecito. But of course, there are a number of other ways that we can interconnect with other agencies, other nonprofit organizations, and other of our neighbors. And finally, the city of Cupertino values the fact that each and every one of us have been working together. I look out here and I see volunteers who have put in countless hours. I see people that are interested in the community in doing more. I see people interested in learning more about what we can be doing. And so I do thank all of you, each and every one of you, for all the efforts that you make. It truly is what makes our society singular, dare I say, great. It is something that we should cherish and value and nurture. It's truly not easy to do. As you can see, in virtually any social context, when you try to inject the idea of more diversity, of more free expression of opinion, inevitably what you get a lot of the times is tension. And it's basically precisely these types of events that help us kind of hash out these ideas in a calm forum. So thank you again for all that you do. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce the chair of the Public Safety Commission to introduce the first speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, Hyman Nalor, chair of the Public Safety Commission.
Thank you, Mayor, for a wonderful welcome note. Appreciate you being here and being engaged with this community. So today we have with us Dr. Jeff Englander, who is a representative of the Santa Clara Public Health Department. And I have a brief bio about him I want to read out to you. And he's going to talk to us about COVID-19 overview and the outlook. And a little biography about Dr. Jeff Englander. Dr. Jeff Englander is a board-certified in internal medicine and physical medicine and rehabilitation, abbreviated as PMR. He was medical director of brain injury rehabilitation for over 20 years, then chair of the PMR department for 4 years at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center. During that time, he was a principal investigator for the Northern California Traumatic Brain Injury Model System, a series of 5 consecutive 5-year grants from the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research to study the outcomes of individuals with TBI. He is a clinical professor affiliated in the Stanford University Division of PMR in the Department of Orthopedic Surgery. In the last 18 months, he has worked as a medical provider at multiple Santa Clara County and Ravenswood Health Center vaccination clinics. Since his retirement from full-time work at SCVMC in 2012, he has volunteered for the Environmental Volunteers, San Francisco Bay Bird Observatory, Jewish Family Services, San Jose Public Library, and the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Santa Clara University. He enjoys bicycling, gardening, yoga, and traveling. With that, I would like to invite Dr. Jeff Englander onto the podium and talk about COVID-19 overview and the outlook. Thank you.
I'm going to take off my mask so you can hear me better. I don't have such a great voice as Mayor Paul. He has a wonderful voice. Boy, I guess that's why you can be the mayor. You can have a good voice. Anyway, my connection with Cupertino is actually longstanding. My kids both played in Little League here, and I was a coach or a manager of Little League for probably 15 years. So I played on all the fields around here, or I didn't play, my kids did, and enjoyed that quite a bit. And I live right by Lynbrook High School, so I'm a San Jose resident, but Cupertino is my neighbor. So we're here tonight to talk about COVID-19 and where we've come all these months. And if you have questions, please feel free to answer them. I'm not a epidemiologist, as you heard. I'm a doctor. I've practiced for a long time, and I've had the experience of working in the vaccine clinics since we've started. So we're going to have a little bit of update on where we've gone with COVID and where we still have to go, because we're in the middle of it. As you can see here, these are the cases that have happened in our county, and our big surge was a year ago now, November, December, January, February. You can see that big hump in the middle of all the cases that we had. And because of the vaccinations that people have done and the precautions that people have taken, which we'll talk about as we go along, we did not have another spike. Other communities, you hear about them now in Alaska and Montana, in Arkansas, and some of the cities in the South where people have not gotten vaccinated. They had a peak that was even bigger than the first peak. But we have not, because of all the precautions that we as a community have taken. So thank you for doing that. This is a chart of the vaccination curve. And the vaccinations were just beginning to be available in last December, January for healthcare workers, and then frontline workers, and then older people, and then gradually all people 18 and older became eligible, and then just the last few months, children between the ages of 12 and 18 were allowed to, or were encouraged and allowed to get the vaccination. And hopefully in the next month, we're going to hear about younger children so we can push this even higher. So our vaccination rate in the whole county is about 73%. That's pretty good. That's good. That's very good. We'd like to be higher than that. We'd like to be over 80%. That would make all of us much happier, but we're on our way there. So If you haven't been vaccinated, please get vaccinated. That's the biggest message for tonight. If you're eligible for a booster, you should get that too. So we'll talk about that as we go along. Vaccination is the number one thing that we can do to prevent us from getting super sick and loading up our hospitals. That's the most important thing, but masking indoors is super important, masking in schools to prevent the spread, especially amongst children who are not yet eligible for the vaccination, is terribly important. Us meeting outside is a way instead of inside. This is a much safer venue for us, right? So ventilation is what we're doing right here. Testing is widely available, very easy to get in our community, thank goodness. And if you have any question about any symptom that you have, cough, sore throat, low-grade fever, you should get tested because that's what we need to prevent from spreading around, okay? And there are treatments for COVID. And then, of course, social distancing. I notice people are not super compacted here, and I worry about the people that went to the Giants games and the 49ers games because they're pretty close and they're not wearing masks. So, but here we're able to do that. So thank you for taking that precaution as well. So who should get the vaccine? Pretty much everybody. I mean, there's very few individuals who are not eligible for the vaccine. Even if you're pregnant, even if you're thinking about getting pregnant, it's okay to get vaccinated. There are no more miscarriages of people who are vaccinated during their first trimester or before they get pregnant than there are afterwards. It's not a risk. COVID is not a risk factor for achieving safe, successful pregnancy. And if you're breastfeeding as well, it's safe. So it makes it even safer for your infant that the parents are vaccinated. There's a lot of myths, a lot of talk about why you shouldn't get the vaccine. You know, young people think they're strong and healthy and they don't need it. Or some people have said, oh, I had COVID already and I don't need it. But you can get COVID again. It's not like certain other diseases like measles or chickenpox where it's very hard to get it again. You can get it, and the COVID virus has changed, as we know. Changed from the Alpha variant to the Delta variant, and the Delta variant can get you even if you had the Alpha variant. Some people are worried that the vaccine is going to make them sick. You may have some side effects from the vaccine. How many of you have had side effects from the vaccine? Anything that you would prevent you from getting it again or getting a booster shot? No. So. I had a sore arm for a few days, and I had a little bit of a headache, but much better than being sick and be sick by yourself in the hospital. Because when you have COVID, you can't have visitors. It's a miserable way to get sick. Let's put it that way. It's not good to get sick anyway, but it's very difficult to be alone. The vaccine is no longer experimental. Thousands and thousands of millions of people have had the vaccine, and there's very little downside to getting it. So there's ways to dispel these myths, and you folks here are probably talking to the choir. Okay. This is just brand new information. Who is eligible for booster doses? We're going to probably hear from the CDC director, Dr. Walensky, in the next couple days. That pretty much everybody who's been vaccinated before, who's 65 and older, is eligible to get a booster. Pfizer's already been approved for over a month, or about a month. I got my Pfizer booster at on 25th of September. But the folks that have got Moderna or got the J&J vaccine are going to be eligible if you're 65 and older to get it. Also, if you're working in the front lines, if you're a public safety officer, a firefighter, a police officer, somebody who works in a grocery store and food preparation. If you're a healthcare worker, of course, you can get a vaccine. You don't have to be 65. If you have underlying medical conditions that make you at risk for getting very, very sick with COVID, you can get a booster shot. And the requirement for Moderna and Pfizer is that the booster shot is at least 6 months after your second shot, but with the J&J, you can get it within 2 months, or after 2 months. And they're probably going to say that with the J&J, you can get either Pfizer or Moderna as a booster. It might be an advantage to do that. What about our children? And a lot of us are worried about our kids that are less than 12. At the end of this month, in another week, the FDA is going to be reviewing the data from, it's all going to be Pfizer at this point, to make their recommendations. The CDC will meet soon after that, within a week after that. And we hope that before Thanksgiving that our young children between 5 and 11 will be able to get the vaccine. And they will need 2 doses. For safety reasons, the dose is going to be lower than the adult dose. It's 1/3 of the adult dose. There will be 2 doses. It'll be widespreadly available. I mean, if people have pediatricians that they're comfortable going with, and that office will give the shots, it's available there. It'll be available in pharmacies, and the county is going to continue to have multiple clinics available for children to get their vaccines. So I've seen a number of teenagers getting their vaccines. A lot of the schools haven't required it, but they've strongly encouraged it. And the kids do just fine with it. They have fewer symptoms than us older folks. Now, COVID is not the only virus out there. And of course, every year the flu virus comes around and makes some of us miserable. Flu vaccines are currently available. I got my flu vaccine today, and because I'm over 65, I got my double dose, and I'm fine. I'm here, doing okay. You can get your flu vaccine and your COVID vaccine at the same time. You can get your flu vaccine and your COVID booster at the same time. Your body will be able to handle it, and it's more convenient to get it at one time. I am not going to make a prediction about mask wearing after being vaccinated again in the boosters. There are going to be conditions in which we got into in June, I guess it was, for about a month. It seemed it wasn't very long that we were allowed to go without masks indoors. And our county has been very proactive about everything from the very beginning. We have been so fortunate to have a competent public health officer in Sarah Cody and her connections with the other public health officers in the all over the Bay Area, that we were on the forefront of being as safe as possible to deal with this virus, and they're continuing to do that. And there are criteria for removing the mask requirements. We have to get above 80% vaccination of the whole population, not just the eligible people. So we're almost there from that point of view. And it's possible that they'll remove the mask mandate 8 weeks after the COVID vaccine is authorized for use in children. But we'll have to see. I'm not going to bet on any of these. And I think we got to get used to mask wearing because it's going to happen again. We'll have other viruses that come along that make it more safe for us to wear masks. And I know that the countries like in Taiwan and Australia and New Zealand and Singapore and Vietnam did a better job in terms of containing the virus because people were used to wearing masks and did it without complaining so much like we do. We complain a lot. It's, inconvenient. There's wide availability of getting both tested for COVID as well as vaccinated for COVID. Many, many sites. It's very easy to get. And even if you don't have you're not good on your cell phone or you're using the web, you can call a number. I think there's a number 211 to get help in terms of getting registered to get a vaccine. So you don't have to be computer literate to do that, because it could be daunting to go through all the different websites if you're not used to it. And we also, because we are a multi-ethnic, multilingual community, the information is available in English, Mandarin, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Tagalog. So there's not much of an excuse not to get the information and not to get vaccinated. So I hope that wasn't too quick, but I have time for questions. I'm more than happy to and I'll try to repeat your questions. Mix and match, yes. So are you asking, is there an advantage to mixing and matching the vaccines? Yeah, it's safe to do it. And the question is it better for you to do it? The only information that I've seen that shows that it's better to get a different vaccine the second time is if you had the J&J vaccine, which is the one-dose vaccine, and that you get a more robust, a stronger antibody response with either Pfizer or Moderna. Moderna even has the biggest response. Moderna dose is a little higher in terms of the amount of mRNA that you get in the vaccine. So if you had the J&J, it's probably good. It's okay to take the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine. If you had the Pfizer, up until now, you've only been able to get the Pfizer as a booster. Now you can. We'll see tomorrow from Dr. Walensky whether she's going to say okay for people who had Moderna to get Pfizer and vice versa. So long answer to your question, but the most important thing is to get the booster, regardless of the time you get. It is not harmful to mix and match. Okay, it is not harmful to do that. It's okay to do it, and as from the point of view of the J&J, to get one of the mRNA virus vaccine, you'll get a more robust antibody response. It isn't the way that our bodies fight the virus is not just antibodies, but it's the front line. The antibodies are the front line, and then the other parts of the immune system also help. It's just harder to measure that impact. Yeah.
So if you have the J&J vaccine first, the one dose, and do you get 2 doses of Pfizer or 2 doses of Moderna as a booster, or just one?
Yeah, so the question was, if you got the J&J first, for the booster, would you get 1 dose or 2 doses? It's just one, it will be just 1 dose. That's all you would need, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I just came to CVS today, and they said they haven't heard anything yet. So will it be announced tomorrow?
I don't work for the CDC, but the committee of the CDC that evaluates the FDA data met today, and they made a recommendation to the whole CDC that the booster shots should be they're safe to use and to be authorized. And then it's up to Dr. Walensky, and she's been very, very prompt. We're lucky to have her. She's wonderful. And because when the Pfizer booster came out, with the recommendations came only for people who were older or immunocompromised, she said no. frontline workers really should be get the booster shot. They deserve it, number one, and we need to protect them because you can't just replace them easily. Not so easy to train a nurse or a doctor or even somebody who's a really good person in the grocery store or a firefighter or a police officer. I mean, the training is long and rigorous, so we need to keep those people healthy. We'll see what Dr. Walensky says. So yes, pay attention. We've had to learn that this year, the last 2 years, we've had to pay attention to what the CDC says. Let's try to get a microphone. Is there another microphone? Oh,
Oh, do we turn on?
she's first.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Doctor, for the presentation. It's very valid. Yesterday or a couple of days ago, CDC actually made the announcement that mixing of the boosters between the vaccine shots are okay. So it should probably be prevalent with the entire population. But my question to you, do you have any news or any more information with the Delta variant, AY42, that is recently increasing in the UK, and CDC announced that they have noticed few cases in the US as well?
I didn't get the second.
AY42, Delta variant. That is a new variant that they have identified.
There's a new way of,
New variant?
a new variant.
Yes.
Yeah, so I asked that very same question. I mean, I've been worried about the Lambda variant because that was in Peru. And so far, there's no big concern about a new variant. But I wouldn't be surprised because we had the Delta variant. We were kind of surprised about that one. So we have to be aware. And that's why I said I think we really have to get used to the masking because, a month from now they might say, oh, we got enough people vaccinated in our county, 80% are vaccinated. You can take the mask off, and then they might, we might get another variant. Viruses are very adaptable. They are able to change their proteins and adapt and mutate a little bit and to stump us. That's why we have a flu vaccine every year, a new one, because the influenza virus changes. And even if it changes a little bit, it makes it more powerful.
Okay, yeah. My question is that how necessary is the booster? Okay, so in other words,
Yeah.
how bad is the deterioration after 6 months of my two shots?
So what vaccine did you get in the first one?
Moderna.
What?
Moderna.
Moderna. Okay, so the question is, how necessary is the booster? And in your case, for Moderna, Moderna seems to be have more sustained effect over time than the Pfizer did. There are several reasons for that. One is the dose of the mRNA was larger in the Moderna, and also the interval between the first dose and the second dose was longer. So the Moderna was given at least 4 weeks apart, whereas Pfizer was given about 3 weeks apart. So that's the way they designed their studies to administer the vaccine, and Moderna was either lucky or smart in doing it that way. So if you have the Moderna vaccine, you're much more protected than, not much more, but more protected in terms of severe, for hospitalization and death. I mean, the rates are still above 90%, whereas the Pfizer rates went down to like 80, 75 to 80%. So, but when you get the Moderna dose, the next dose I don't think is going to be as strong. I think it's going to be a half of a dose. The people that I know that have gotten a booster dose of Moderna and they got the higher dose, they had a lot more side effects. They had several days of feeling crummy, but they didn't have to go to the hospital and didn't get sick, super sick. So it's a personal choice, and depending on your other risk factors, you should talk to your doctor about it. That's why you have a doctor, I hope you have a doctor, and that's why you talk to them. That's why they're there for you.
Hey, so given that the vaccine just effectiveness wanes over time,
Yes.
should we expect that, every 6 months for a long time we should be expecting boosters?
Okay. Wow, great question. So the question is, because the vaccines aren't perfect and the immunity wanes over time, should we be expecting to have boosters more often? I'm trying to think like Dr. Fauci. And he would probably say yes, that we should be prepared. We shouldn't be surprised. He wouldn't say, oh yeah, you're going to have it. But I think he would say we shouldn't be surprised if we're going to need it. I mean, we need a flu vaccine every year. Is the coronavirus as smart as the influenza virus in terms of mutating? And so far it seems to be pretty good at surviving. And also, the world has not been as well vaccinated as Santa Clara County, for sure. And I have friends in other countries, and in Mexico, for instance, they only had availability of Sinovac and the Sputnik, and that vaccine is around 50% effective. Well, the virus is going to keep spreading. So I wouldn't be surprised, but I can't say for sure. All right. Thank you so much for your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Englander. Next up is a presentation by Chief Taylor Mortenson and Captain Chris Ingram. They're going to talk about evacuation planning and ZoneHaven. But before we get there, let me introduce both of them. Chief Mortenson is a battalion chief with the Santa Clara County Fire Department. He has 22 years experience in the fire service and is currently assigned as a battalion chief in the training division. Chief Mortenson has a bachelor's degree in psychology from University of California at Santa Barbara. Chief Mortenson is the ZoneHaven evacuation project co-lead with Captain Chris Ingram. Captain Ingram is a fire captain with the Santa Clara County Fire Department and is currently assigned to the Cupertino Fire Station. He has over 15 years experience in the fire service with 8 years working in the city of Cupertino. Captain Ingram has a bachelor's degree in forestry concentrating on wildland fire and fuels management with a minor in geographic information systems. He is a member of regional and state incident management team responding to many of the state's most catastrophic wildfires. Captain Ingram has been involved in implementing many mapping and technology projects within the Santa Clara County Fire Department. With that, I'll invite both of them.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. I'm here with Captain Chris Ingram, and then we also have Jen Sanoa from our community education and firefighter Chelsea Brown. They're presenting some material at the back table. So we're very honored to be here and present this topic to you. We're really excited about it. It's a great platform that we're going to be implementing, or it's already implemented, that we can bring you up to speed on here. So ZoneHaven it's an evacuation. What is ZoneHaven? It's an evacuation platform that we can use in the fire service to help implement evacuations for any type of hazard, wildfire, flooding, active shooter, any type of event, hazardous materials release. And it's a program that Captain Ingram first got introduced to and saw the value in it and brought it to County Fire. And so now it's being utilized currently in the areas that County Fire provides fire protection to. We'll go over how it's used, how you all will receive alerts, how to evacuate safely, and sort of a little tie into emergency preparedness. So what is ZoneHaven? It's a tool that facilitates our activities on an emergency, and we can assist the communities evacuate in a more timely and efficient manner. The old ways of an evacuation would go, from the incident commander, the first, captain or battalion chief, we would be communicating to county communications. It was a sort of a cumbersome process to get that evacuation in the end out to the citizens who we're trying to protect. So ZoneHaven will greatly increase our capabilities and speed up that process. And the picture here is actually, the middle picture is Captain Ingram on his incident management team on the CZU fire. So ZoneHaven is a product that's being used throughout the state. It's been used for quite some time. It kind of started up on the peninsula, I believe, and it's grown throughout the state of California, and it's used quite often. And so it'll be, it's something that we brought to County Fire to use in the areas that we serve. You can also, we'll go into it later, but it also allows the community to there's a public-facing side of ZoneHaven, and the community can see that, as it takes place, as we, place these evacuation orders and warnings. Some of the incidents, as I mentioned, that it's already been used on: the CZU Lightning Complex, the Glass Fire, the Red Salmon Complex, and then this year it's already been used on, as you can see, Dixie, Antelope, McCash, several fires up and down the state. It's a web-based platform that sort of gives us and you real-time data, real-time information on these evacuations that are taking place, not just in our community, but you can see them going on, up and down the state if you want to log on to this this website, and we'll show you how to register and all that. But there are two sides to ZoneHaven. There's ZoneHaven Evac, which is the law enforcement and the fire side. That's what we use on the operations side of things. And then there's ZoneHaven Aware. ZoneHaven Aware is the public-facing side of ZoneHaven that you all can log on to at community.zonehaven.com. And we'll go into the Know Your Zone campaign. But you can log on to that, and you can kind of look through the platform and kind of play around with it. And there's some tools to use and, kind of see how it works. We're live in the portions that are the west side, the portions that are served by Santa Clara County Fire Department. And we're going to be working on more areas coming soon. Just take over. And then ZoneHaven, it's basically, like I mentioned, it's an evacuation platform where fire and law will come together at the command post, and we will get that message out to the citizens as a unified command team, whatever the incident is. Like I mentioned, it's all risk. It could be a wildfire or a flood, a hazardous materials release, and we'll go through kind of what that will look like for alerts for you all and how you can, tie into the public-facing side of it as well. So we're really excited. We've been working really hard with the sheriff's office in this area to sort of get those zones built, and you'll see what I'm talking about, as we progress through the slideshow. But we started up in the north end of the areas served by County Fire and kind of worked our way south. And as we went through these zones, we built them out with our area knowledge, with the sheriff's area knowledge, and how we were going to collaborate together and build out these zones in order to most effectively evacuate should we need that process.
All right, I'm going to pick up the presentation and keep going. So Chief Mortenson already kind of talked about the different types of incidents that we can use the platform on: wildfires, earthquakes, flood or dam failures, severe weather, hazardous materials, or active shooters. Recently in the county, there were a couple high school bomb threats that we were able to use the system alongside Los Altos PD during an event up there. So ZoneHaven helps because events that we're dealing with nowadays are becoming more and more complex. You hear wildfires in the news almost daily during the summertime, and so ZoneHaven will help us be able to make those evacuations quicker. The events also require more coordination with law enforcement, fire, and other entities, including the cities and other agencies, whether they be parks, et cetera. the evacuations, it's crucial that they're done as quickly as possible. ZoneHaven actually, it was a startup company after the Camp fire in Paradise. So obviously that was a catastrophic fire that they just couldn't get notifications out fast enough. And that happens a lot of times when the fire starts and it's a wind-driven fire that's pushing into a community. So a couple folks in the tech community thought, how can we help deal with this issue that's going on? And so they were able to reach out and talk to some folks in the fire service and in the community to ask, how can we help and how can we build a platform that will be utilized by both first responders and the community? And this is where we're at right now. These evacuations continue to be hitting larger and larger populations. I was on the Kincaid fire where we evacuated everything from Highway 101 in Santa Rosa all the way to the Pacific Ocean. That was prior to ZoneHaven, but if you could see the amount of effort that went into trying to draw up these evacuation zones for a large area like that, it's a very time-consuming process. Luckily, we were doing it in anticipation of a wind event, and so there was a little bit of time, but by creating these zones ahead of time, we've saved a ton of time when a wildfire strikes. And then there's also some advantages within the platform that takes into consideration traffic flows, how many people we're trying to get out of an area, et cetera. So if it'll help us make those decisions on, well, okay, we're going to evacuate this zone first, give them some time to evacuate out because the fire's not anticipated to get, progress further, and then we can make another evacuation order after the fact so that we don't cause too much traffic backup. So let's talk about some evacuation terminology and what they mean. So within ZoneHaven, there's several different statuses. Normal status is everything's A-OK. An advisory status is we're just trying to get a message out to somebody. There might be a gas leak in the area. That could be a safety hazard, and we just want people to avoid the area. So we might turn a zone into the advisory status and make some notifications. Past advisory, there's an evacuation warning, which then allows people to say, okay, there's something occurring. We advise that you should probably either pack up and maybe get out if you can and want to, but definitely stay tuned because when an order comes, you definitely need to get out. But we always encourage folks, even when they're under evacuation warning, to evacuate as well. Then there's the evacuation order. So this means that there is an immediate threat to life and property in that area, and that we're asking folks to evacuate at that time. We can also put in a shelter in place. This is typical more for like a hazardous materials incident where maybe some sort of chemical has been dispersed in the area, and we just want people to stay indoors while that event is being mitigated. And then the last one is clear to repopulate. That's once the fire's kind of gone through and we've determined that it's safe to allow residents back into the area and repopulate. Okay, here's just some graphics that talk about evac warning and order. So with the warning, it just says a potential threat to life and or property, and then evacuation order, like we mentioned, imminent threat to life. Okay, so now that we're live in Cupertino and the rest of the community served by Santa Clara County Fire, we have kicked off a Know Your Zone campaign so that the public can find out what zone they live in prior to the incident happening. So if you want, I'm not sure if you'll be able to snap the QR code from where you're sitting now, but you can also go to community.zonehaven.com and we can do a little exercise. And so in 5 steps, you can go to the URL. You can then, you click on the highlighted zone, or you type in your address, and we'll I think there's a video that'll pop up here, explain a little better than, so we'll follow the video here. Is there audio? by chance? There should be audio playing.
This short 5-minute video is going to walk you through the process of using ZoneHaven. Begin by navigating to community.zonehaven.com. Once there, accept or decline the agreement. You can then use the tooltips to see the different functions, including search, active fires, weather, legend, and filters. Once you understand the tooltips, the first thing to know is that you can easily pan or zoom the map with your mouse. Zoom in, and you can see that each zone is clearly labeled with a designator. Click on a zone for more information. Once you click on the zone, an information box will appear. It will show you the zone designator, the zone status, reason for the status, a summary of the zone, a description of the zone, and useful links. To see additional useful links, click See All. Each of these links is clickable. In this example, we will take a look at Alert SEC. It is exceptionally important to be signed up for Alert SEC. ZoneHaven does not take the place of Alert SEC. Instead, the two products work in concert to keep you informed and aware of protective actions in your area. We can next take a look at Santa Clara County Fire's Ready, Set, Go webpage. This is a great resource for understanding the things you can do before a protective action is necessary to keep yourself, your family, and your community safe from wildfire and other threats. Once you have reviewed the linked information, go ahead and close the new tab that is opened, and you'll be returned immediately to ZoneHaven Aware. One of the most powerful tools within ZoneHaven is the ability to search for your specific address to determine if you were affected by a current protective action, like an evacuation order, evacuation warning, or shelter in place. Type your address, and ZoneHaven will recenter the map and show you the zone that currently applies. You can also take a look and see who your fire and police agency are with primary responsibility for your area. We can see the same information that was present previously, including zone designator and description. We can also easily toggle between a satellite view and a map view to better orient around your home, your neighborhood, or your workplace. Let's toggle the view back to map and zoom out and take a look at an area under current evacuation orders and warnings. We'll navigate up to the Dixie Fire in Plumas County to see an example of what an area might look like while protective actions are in place. You can see that as we navigate into the area of the 2021 Dixie Fire, the zone status is indicated by different colors. You can find a key to these colors using the tools in the upper left of the screen. In this example, some zones are shaded red. These zones are under evacuation order. Other zones are under evacuation warning, which are shaded yellow. One final tip for using ZoneHaven is the ability to see detailed local weather directly inside of the application. You can see temperature, relative humidity, rainfall, wind, and air quality index. Always double check that you are looking at the weather for the correct area, and remember that weather is never a reason to ignore a protective action. Thank you for taking time to watch this tutorial. I want to remind you one more time that it is critically important that you either sign up or remain signed up for Alert SCC. Alert SCC remains the best source of information for local Santa Clara County alerts and will advise you of any change in status to ZoneHaven zones. Thank you and be safe.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the alerts and notifications. So in the video, they talk about Alert SEC, we encourage everybody, if you haven't already done so, to register on Alert SCC so that you can get notifications via cell phone, via email, etc. When any of these protective actions might happen, as well as other information that's pushed out. In addition to Alert SCC, if an incident is significant and we're doing evacuation warnings and alerts, you will get what we refer to as WIA alerts, the wireless emergency alerts. You typically get them for like amber alerts, silver alerts. A lot of times it just automatically comes to your phone. That information for an evacuation would also come directly to your phone. And any of those alerts are going to be started by law enforcement and the fire department. All right, we talked about going to community.zonehaven.com to check out what zone you live in and kind of make a mental note, because anytime we push out these alerts, we'll also list what zones are being affected. Perfect. Okay, here we talked about Alert SCC. Social media, it's important that it's a great tool, but it's not the only tool. So we obviously recommend you to sign up for Alert SCC, but also if you have Twitter, Facebook, Nextdoor, please follow your public safety agencies, being Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office and the Santa Clara County Fire Department, as well as City and Office of Emergency Services. And here's a couple handles. You can also follow ZoneHaven, but that shouldn't be your only place to follow. All right, and just a couple things over at our booth. There's additional emergency preparedness information to help your family create an emergency and escape plan. Talk about items that you should have in an emergency go bag, what you can have in a vehicle kit in your car, and then try to create a plan out of your community and your home for evacuations. With that, we are now to the questions portion.
Yes, what kind of backbone or infrastructure behind the scenes is there? How robust is the system in case of a power failure or something like that?
Yeah, so the system continues to become more and more robust. Last year, it was still in the beta mode, and during the CZU fire, the website was taken down with too much traffic. So this year, it's managed multiple extremely large fires between the Dixie and several other fires all at the same time. It's managed all of the web traffic just fine. They're on Amazon Cloud, and I'm sure most of you know more about that stuff than I do. But it definitely is able to ramp up when it's being hit with additional hits. As far as communication pieces, there's other things that are available that our fire department has access to. If the cell towers go down, et cetera. Obviously, with these alerts, we'll also be working with the sheriff's office to be doing as best of door-to-door type of evacuations in the areas that are most threatened. But if all communications go down, we have the ability to bring in some other equipment to help bring up some communications. We've got two what are referred to as Moses units within Santa Clara County Fire that can spin up some bandwidth to help push these alerts out and still make it to devices. But, I would... We're constantly working on trying to have backup plans in place in case we lose comms. All right.
Yeah,
Anything else?
We really encourage, from your side of things, to receive those alerts, again, to register for Alert SCC. Not just your landline, which is always a sure thing, but also your wireless device as well. And so from the end user's perspective, you can also, when we bring up to speed our equipment to send those messages out, whether that's the Moses unit or just a standard, ZoneHaven platform, you all have the capabilities via landline, wireless alert, alerts on your cell phone, just a multitude of ways to get that alert SCC message out to you. So it's a two-sided approach there. Good question, thank you.
So the Safe Haven is not an app, it's a platform?
Nope. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a web-based application. So it's not, you don't go to the App Store and download it per se. You just go to the website, and it's a web-based application. Yep.
And the community side of ZoneHaven, the community.zonehaven.com is it's not, we've kind of talked about this before. That is not the alerting piece to you all. That's definitely a great resource for you to have and to know your zone, and you can log on and you can see that a zone is in, evacuation order or warning. But the web side of that is more of an informational piece. I guess it's somewhat passive. The real alert in an event will come from Alert SCC, but the web-based part is, it's important too to know your zones, and you can log on and see that, or see friends' zones, or all up and down the state. So.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Battalion Chief Mortenson and Captain Ingram, for your presentation on ZoneHaven and also for all that you do for the community. I'd like to introduce the Wildfire Awareness Initiative, or WHY. The WHY organization was founded in early 2021 by two former Kennedy Middle School students, Niranjana and Lauren. WHY is dedicated to spreading awareness on how to both prevent and prepare for wildfires. The organization is led by 20 students who work on many events such as online webinars, elementary Kahoots, raffles, contests, and community presentations. To reach a wider audience, WHY posts informative posts on Instagram and have amassed a following of over 2,200 people. Today we have 4 WHY leaders, Madeline, Lauren, Niranjana, and Arna, who will be speaking to us about their recent initiatives. They are currently local Monte Vista first years, and during their spare time, their hobbies span from playing tennis to playing violin. Although they've informed me that they are not fun people, I'm sure they spend most of their time bettering the community through WHY. Just a reminder also, we have food and drink available on the side if you need any refreshments.
Hello, everyone. We are Wildfire Awareness Initiative, or WAY, and our organization, as mentioned earlier by Wing, was that we are founded by 2 high school students, Niranjana Sankar and Lauren Kim, and we were founded in early 2021, and our goal is to inform youth on how to prepare and prevent for wildfires. This includes informing them on how to plan and what to expect, and the importance of passing the information to their parents. We also have 4 different teams: creative, outreach, research, and event. And together, we all work together to plan events and post informative posts on Instagram. And total, we have around 10 to 15 team members. Here is our team, and we are also sponsored by the Santa Clara Fire Safe Council, as they provided us with $200 to repair the flyers over there at our booth, and for our contests and events. Some of our accomplishments include we volunteered at Santa Clara Fire Department to prepare disaster kits for elementary schools. These disaster kits include fun flyers on teaching the youth about safety and how to prepare for wildfires, and also little goodies such as pencils. And we prepared over for about 400 schools locally to send these disaster kits to. We have also prepared wildfire Kahoots and flyers for CUSDK 8 schools. These Kahoots and flyers are about wildfire topics such as statistics, causes, effects that we'll go into later on in this presentation,
and they've been made for elementary schoolers to give them some basic knowledge on what wildfires are. And we also hosted online preparedness webinars with guest speakers from Santa Clara Fire Department. These guest speakers would present a short presentation on Ready, Set, Go or other wildfire topics. Then we held a Kahoot, like just some questions, and whichever audience member answered the questions accurately and as fast as possible would receive a gift card. And we also worked on a thank you card workshop over quarantine for firefighters and had different audience members write little thank you messages, insert little pictures, and we're going to send that to the firefighters. And we also presented at the Cupertino Teen Commission as a youth-led nomination and reached 2.2 thousand followers on Instagram. Here are our pictures from the Santa Clara Fire Department volunteering, these two, and these are our webinar pictures, the Kahoot, and our presentation. And these are also some of the meetings we had for the thank you card workshop and other meetings for our work. Now on to our first topic of wildfires, wildfire statistics. Just in 2020 alone, over 4 million acres have burned due to wildfires. And there have been 5 times the death toll since 2016 and 2,000 more wildfires since 2016. As you can see, over these past few years, wildfires are becoming more severe and frequent. Therefore, we need to learn how to prepare and prevent for them.
This is a post on our Instagram at WAI for Change, and this is by one of our creative team members, Lotus. As you can see, many of the causes of wildfires are due to human activity. To be more precise, 53.8% are caused by us, while only 7% is caused by lightning, a natural event. 24.6% is still undetermined, but it is highly likely that it's due to human activity. As we can see, some negative wildfire effects are that it drastically changes terrain, which can cause a loss of habitat for native species, causing them to move to a new place. This can also increase animal species extinction. For humans, we can have a worsened water quality from more pollution, such as soot and dust, and etc. These effects will be talked about more in depth later in the presentation. There can be a worsened health due to these pollution, as we cannot adapt to those changes. It will also increase the death rate, especially in more affected areas, which will then worsen the economy due to deaths and damages.
Wildfires tend to affect minorities with much greater impact. One example is how Native communities tend to be 6 times more likely to be wildfire prone as they live in areas that tend to have more wildfires. Black and Hispanic communities have a 50% greater vulnerability as many of their communities lack adequate equipment, and this means that wildfires could have devastating effects as these communities cannot fully recover.
Concerning bad air quality, some effects include negative responses in the cardiovascular system, increased risk of heart, lung disease, as well as strokes for the general public, as well as an increased risk for people with asthma and respiratory conditions. An AQI, air quality index, is the measure of how healthy, clean, or unhealthy the air is. An AQI below 50 is generally considered healthy even for people with respiratory conditions, while an AQI between 300 and 500 is considered dangerous and is mandated as a health warning for emergency conditions and may even be cause for evacuation, where even healthy individuals are at risk for respiratory illness. There are a number of sites on the internet to learn about the AQI in your city and state, but one credible site with reliable information is airnal.gov. What are some simple ways that we can combat this in our own communities by ourselves? For one, we can use air masks and filters, and we can keep track of the AQI, be aware of what's going on in our community, and acknowledge warnings. Recently, last month, Lake Tahoe suffered from the Caldor fire. The AQI hit 694 in Tahoe City, the worst AQI in the world, previously compared to the highest AQI, which was 453. The smoke was so thick that many residents reported not being able to see past their own lots, and some struggled to keep smoke from seeping in through their windows. The fire started on August 14th and went up till September 17th and lasted for 49 days. In these 49 days, 3 counties were affected, and the cause for this fire is still under investigation. According to calfire.gov, 81 structures were damaged, 1,003 structures were destroyed, and 5 people were injured.
While wildfires may seem frightening, there are many ways you can prepare. Ways to prepare your home include utilizing zones. So 5 feet away from your home, make sure to remove flammable material, such as leaves and gutters. 5 to 30 feet away from your home, make sure to trim grass and don't block emergency exits. 30 to 100 feet away from your home, make sure to trim trees regularly and get rid of dead foliage. You can also prepare go bags with your family. These can include food, water, chargers, and anything you would need in case of emergency evacuation. You can also create emergency routes and emergency contacts with members of your household. And always make sure to listen to authorities when they issue alerts. These alerts can come through radio or TV, as that is the General Natural Disaster Alert, or you can choose select alerts, such as the SCC Alert app. Wildfires are on a trend of becoming more and more frequent, and the best way to be ready for them is to prepare. Thank you for listening to our presentation. If you would like to join Y, you can join with a QR code, which is on our lovely thing over there, or you can follow at Y for a Change on Instagram, or email us at yforachange.com. Thank you.
If anyone has any questions, then you can ask. And if you want to also subscribe to our mailing list for weekly wildfire updates, you just go to that link, tinyurl.com/wildfire, like that thing, and alerts, and you'll be able to sign up for our weekly wildfire alerts. And also, if you have any questions, that's our email and our Instagram. Okay. If no one has any questions, then thank you for listening.
Thank you, Y. That was great. Hi, everyone. My name is Yvonne, and today I have the pleasure of introducing Ruth Darlene, Executive Director of WomenSV. Ruth Darlene's educational background includes a master's in English literature and teaching credential in California State Certification in Domestic Violence Advocacy. At Stanford's Center for Research and Disease Prevention, Ruth worked as a teacher and curriculum writer in a study designed to raise awareness about eating disorders. She adapted their research model to create her own program in 2011 to address domestic abuse in upscale communities. Under the fiscal sponsorship of Los Altos Community Foundation, she launched her own nonprofit in 2011 called Women of Silicon Valley, or WomenSV. WomenSV became an independent 501c3 nonprofit in 2017 and has served over 1,000 survivors of domestic violence and coercive control in the past 10 years. Ruth's program helps survivors address the risks and challenges of being trapped in a relationship with a powerful, sophisticated abuser. She also offers professional training to assist providers such as therapists, physicians, law enforcement attorneys, and teachers in becoming more trauma-informed in working with survivors who are involved with a powerful, sophisticated abuser. This type of abuser not only engages in physical and sexual violence, but often uses other tactics to coerce and control their intimate partner. These tactics don't always rise to the level of police intervention. WomenSV steps in to fill this gap in services and offers strategies to address physical and sexual violence and more subtle forms of abuse such as financial, legal, technological, and emotional. Ruth also does trainings for providers, gives public presentations to the community, and works with the media to raise awareness about the impact of domestic violence in middle to upper income areas. Welcome, Ruth.
Thank you so much, Yvonne, and thank you for that very thorough introduction. I almost feel like you gave my talk. You said so many wonderful things, and very thorough, and thank you for that. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with you all tonight, and thanks so much for coming out tonight and enjoying this fine weather before the atmospheric river hits us. So let's enjoy it while it lasts. As Yvonne mentioned, I'm the executive director and founder of Women of Silicon Valley, WomenSV, a nonprofit that focuses on more subtle forms of abuse. We do address physical and sexual violence, but our real area of expertise is in the more subtle forms that Yvonne mentioned: emotional, financial, legal, technological. So tonight I'm going to share with you a little bit of what I've learned after working with over 1,000 women about what domestic violence and covert abuse and coercive control, and I'll define that in a moment, what they all look like in our lovely community. But first, starting with some troubling statistics, I'm sorry to have to share with you tonight that according to the World Health Organization, 1 in 3 women on the planet will be severely beaten or raped during her lifetime. 1 in 3. In the United States, 1 in 4. And 1 in 7 to 1 in 9 men. So men can be victims of domestic violence. It's important to acknowledge that too. But according to the Department of Justice, 85% of victims of domestic violence are female. So that's our focus at WomenSV, and that's our area of expertise. But did you know that when a woman is pregnant, actually one of the greatest dangers to her is her intimate partner? 25% of female patients who go to the ER are there for domestic violence-related injuries, and unfortunately, physicians are not getting the training they need to recognize the difference between falling down the stairs and being pushed down the stairs. So that's one of the things I do, is go out and do trainings for physicians. Last week it was for Valley Med, OBGYNs, and the week before that, Kaiser physicians, to help them become more trauma-informed in dealing with domestic violence survivors. Some people think, well, I'm out of the relationship now, it's only going to get better. That's when the real danger begins, because the danger level spikes for up to 2 years after leaving an abuser. Over 70% of domestic violence incidents happen after the woman leaves her abuser. So our mission is, exactly as Yvonne was talking about, to empower survivors, to raise awareness in the community, and to do trainings for providers to become more trauma-informed. We dream of a day when every man, every woman, every child can live in peace and safety in their own home. It's a fundamental human right, and it's violated every time there's an act of domestic violence. Our services, we went over it, direct client services, we run a helpline, we run a support group, we work one-on-one with our ladies for as long as they want. We're in it for the long haul, and we have ladies from all over the world, all different races, religions, cultures, backgrounds, but all united as sisters because they share that common bond of being involved with a powerful, covert, sophisticated abuser. Here's our fabulous team. Multicultural, multilingual. Well, I'm the only one that speaks one language, but all the rest of them speak more than one. I'm just delighted and honored to have them all working side by side with me. 10 years we've been around and served over 1,000 women, and we're still going strong. Serving over 1,000 women now, and last year alone it was 216 survivors, 216 from our immediate area. Most of the survivors we serve are in Santa Clara County, but they do come from other counties as well. And in fact, we get calls from all over the United States. And why? Because we're the only nonprofit in the United States that's focused on coercive control, covert abuse, women in middle to upper income areas dealing with a powerful, sophisticated abuser. I was on the Megyn Kelly Today show a few years ago before it got canceled. I don't think I had anything to do with that. But while I was just before I went on the show, I was talking to the producer, and she said that she scoured the country looking for a nonprofit focused on the demographic that we were about to address on Megyn Kelly's show. And she said, you, WomenSV, were it. I spoke with her last year, and I reminded her about what she said, and she said, yes, you're still it. So we have a long way to go to educate our country and the world that domestic violence doesn't just involve broken bones, bruises. It also can involve more subtle forms of abuse that damage you and threaten you and put your life at risk. Examples of some of the presentations I've done and the trainings I've done for Google, Oracle, Kaiser Physicians. We are so blessed to have these partnerships with powerful providers, men and women who use their power and credentials for good. Thank God for the good men and women out there. I'm so blessed to have really an army of supporters protecting us as we work to protect our survivors. Our clients at WomenSV, we call them our ladies because we establish that personal relationship with them that lasts for as long as they want. It's not a one and done. Do you need a restraining order or a shelter? We are here for you for as long as you want us to be. So our ladies are engineers, doctors, lawyers, psychologists, entrepreneurs, CEOs, religious leaders, stay-at-home parents. Their partners, their abusive partners are engineers, doctors, professors, lawyers, psychologists, entrepreneurs, CEOs, religious leaders, stay-at-home parents. My dad was a physician, and I have tremendous respect for physicians, but I think it's one of the ultimate acts of evil when a physician takes his medical knowledge and uses it to threaten and hurt and sometimes even kill his intimate partner. So that's our focus on these more subtle forms of abuse: emotional, financial, legal, technological, and other forms of coercive control. I keep using that term. What does it mean? It's a pattern, not a one-off, because it's hard to prove. It's a pattern of controlling, isolating, and threatening behavior. We mentioned some examples, the emotional abuse. It ranges from everything from gaslighting, getting inside your partner's head, trying to convince them that they didn't hear correctly what you actually said, trying to make them doubt their memory, their perception of what happened, their perception of reality over time, causing them to doubt their own sanity. So that's at one end of the spectrum, that emotional abuse, gaslighting, and it ranges from that all the way to non-fatal and fatal strangulation. And here's another disturbing fact. Over 35% of our survivors that we work with at WomenSV have experienced non-fatal strangulation at the hands of their intimate partner, their doctor, psychologist, religious leader, therapist, intimate partner. Coercive control is a lethality risk, right up there with owning a gun and ending the relationship. It's a liberty crime. According to Evan Stark, Dr. Evan Stark, who wrote the book, Coercive Control, How Men Entrap Women in Personal Life, because coercive control tends to be a gender-based crime. That doesn't mean women can't be controlling. Yes, they can. And men can be victims of coercive control, and women can be very controlling parents as well. We do want to acknowledge that. But on the whole, typically, it tends to be an act perpetrated by abusive men towards their intimate partners. Why does Evan Stark call it a liberty crime? Because it robs an individual of their fundamental human right to live in peace and safety in their own home. And I call it the ultimate form of identity theft because it robs them of who they once were before getting into this relationship. Their sense of spontaneity, freedom, happiness, creativity, everything comes under attack and gets worn away over time. The good news is, that was a lot of bad news. Here's the good news. As of January of this year, a new law has gone into effect in Family Code. It's Family Code 6320. You can look it up online, and we can thank Senator Susan Rubio for creating a law to protect survivors from coercive control. And it can be grounds for a restraining order, which if violated can become a criminal act. So God bless Senator Susan Rubio. God bless domestic violence survivor, Senator Susan Rubio. Family Code 6320, you can look it up, and here's the language in the law online. What it does is it expands the definition of domestic violence by expanding the definition of disturbing the peace to include things like unreasonably interfering with a person's free will and, thank you, Dr. Stark, personal liberty. By isolating the other partner from friends, or the other party from friends, relatives, or other sources of support, cutting her off from her friends, depriving her of basic necessities, hiding the car keys so she can't get to work, hiding her medication, so, especially if she's got a chronic or life-threatening illness, controlling, regulating, monitoring her partner's movements. You'll see the gender isn't referred to in this in the law, and that's so they could get the law passed. They took the his, her out of it. But according to Dr. Stark, we do want to acknowledge that it's primarily a gender-based crime. But this controlling behavior, making her FaceTime on the way to work, FaceTime during her lunch and FaceTime all the way home so he can be sure she's not fooling around with somebody else at work. Micromanagement of activities that are related to duties around the house, the way she cooks, the way she cleans, the way she looks after the children. One of our ladies has a 10-page document on how to do the laundry. It's a form of human trafficking. It involves force, fraud, and coercion, those three elements of human trafficking. And it can be deadly when a woman tries to escape from a relationship like that, when all the financial control has been usurped by her partner. Coercive control also involves financial abuse. And that's the reason why we don't charge for our services at WomenSV, because so many of our survivors have experienced severe financial control and abuse. And when they leave the relationship, their partner's still living a fine life while she's struggling to put food on the table and keep a roof over our head. One of our ladies was camping out at Denny's just to have a roof over her head. Compelling her by force or intimidation to do things she doesn't want to do or shouldn't have to do, like forcing her to go back to work 2 weeks after giving birth to twins by cesarean section, or not letting her work if she wants to pursue her career or her dreams, forcing her to sacrifice her dreams for his. We have this idea that domestic violence doesn't happen in nicer neighborhoods, but the fact is we're just better at hiding it. According to Susan Weitzman, clinical psychologist who deals with survivors in this population and who wrote the book Not to People Like Us, the more money the community had that belonged to the husband and wife, but really she'd lost control of it in most cases, but the more money the partnership had, the more worried she was of being killed if she ever left the relationship, if not by her partner directly, then perhaps by a paid third party. A reminder of what's happened to our ladies. So who are the covert abusers? It's the therapist who gets inside his partner's head and starts to convince her that she's losing her mind, who calls the police when he wants to show her who's boss and gets her put on a 5150 psychiatric hold after she says she wants a divorce. It's the CEO that hides his income and takes money out of the community funds and pretends it came from another source. We have terms like embezzlement and fraud and forgery and money laundering out in the business world, but what do you call it when it happens in an intimate partner relationship? It's harder to prove and it's harder to get justice. It's the cybersecurity expert who puts hidden cameras in the light fixtures. One of our ladies, a hidden camera in the faucet in the shower head in the bathroom. It's the physician who threatens to kill his wife, terrorizes her by saying, you know how I'm going to kill you? I'm going to inject you with a poisonous solution between your toes in a way that the coroner won't even think to look. I sit on the domestic violence death review team. I know what the ultimate act of domestic violence looks like, and I asked the coroner, is that possible? Can you do it? Do that? And she said yes. So what does an abuser look like? What does a covert abuser look like? You can't tell. They look like regular people. We have this idea that an abuser looks like the guy with the red frame around him. That's our stereotypical notion of what an abuser looks like. And what's he wearing? Do you know what that's called? A wife beater, right? With the bottle of beer and watching football and the fist raised. But all of these other men, all but him, have been found to have committed domestic violence, and some, the ultimate act. Every single man in that bottom row has been found to have committed the ultimate act of domestic violence, murder. In our own community, a Silicon Valley engineer in January of this year showed up at the police department and confessed to killing his wife. And when the police went to the home, they found that not only had he killed his wife, but he had killed their 11-year-old daughter. It happens here, even in our wonderful, educated, safe community. What does a survivor or victim of abuse look like? And I use both terms, not always survivor. Why? Because not all of them survive. These women on the bottom row, the two on the left, the two on the right, did not survive. The couple of ladies in the middle, this is Mrs. Carmen Dow mourning the loss of her son who was killed by her husband. The ladies on the top, beaten severely by their intimate partners. And we have Senator Susan Rubio, survivor. And we have Evan Rachel Wood, who was one of the other driving forces behind Senate Bill 1141, now Family Code 6320, coercive control survivor, abuse survivor, Evan Rachel Wood. It happens here to intimate partners, to women in our community. And as I said, they don't all survive. Here was an ultimate victim, Juliana, in our community, finance manager at Apple, murdered on Christmas Eve just a few years ago. So that is a lot of bad news, but I want to focus on the good news and the hope that we are building a village of supporters, of very strong allies who are focused on this issue. I've got a wonderful relationship with the Los Altos Police Department. I was privileged to speak to Mayor Darcy Paul's City Council a little while ago at the Public Safety Commission. I'm so glad to build the partnership with Cupertino. As time goes by, we build more and more partnerships because that's what it's all about. Our community, our town, our county, our country, our world banding together to recognize that domestic violence knows no boundaries. It can happen to anybody. It could happen to you or someone you know, someone you care about. If there is someone that you care about after what I've said tonight, please join us over at the table here and talk to Masha or Sarah, our wonderful domestic violence advocates. If there's someone you care about, we can give you some brochures, we can give you resources. Please reach out and express your concern to somebody that might be suffering from this issue because you could save a life. Thank you.
All right, Ruth, thank you for that moving presentation and for everything you've done for women in need in our community. All right, I'm Commissioner Shan. For our last topic, it's an overview on crime and safety. And I have the distinct honor of introducing someone who's a staple of the Public Safety Commission, as well as a staple in our community, Captain Rich Urena. Captain Rich Urena started his law enforcement career with the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office in 2001. And during his time, he has worked in a wide range of assignments to include patrol, court security, the air unit, a detective, and police trainer. Captain Urena previously managed the Investigations Division and the Court Security Division before being given the honor of serving as the captain of the West Valley Patrol Division. The division is responsible for public safety services in the unincorporated areas of western Santa Clara County, the cities of Cupertino and Saratoga, as well as the town of Los Altos Hills. He leads a team of 89 men and women, all focused on providing residents with the best public safety service possible. And Captain Urena holds a BA in leadership and is a graduate of the prestigious FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. Captain.
Good evening. How's everyone doing this evening? Excellent. So first of all, before I get started, I wanted to thank the Public Safety Commission for all their work in putting together this awesome presentation. Even though you guys are just here tonight, you dedicate yourselves every month to this topic, and so we want to thank you for bringing us together this evening. All right, so what are we going to talk about this evening? Well, we're going to talk about some crime totals. One of the questions I get asked often is, how are we doing in Cupertino? I keep hearing that crime's on the rise, right? We always hear that. But the reality is, we're actually doing okay. And we'll look at some statistics, we'll talk about some cases, we'll really get a good perspective of where we're at in terms of crime in Cupertino. One of the categories that we like to measure is our residential burglary rate. Unfortunately, property crimes in Cupertino is our #1 type of crime. And so what we look at is our residential burglary rates and the data associated to that. And I think what you'll see here is a lot of good information that can help mitigate some of these thefts. We'll look at grand thefts as they relate to the catalytic converter epidemic we're having. And I'll talk about what a catalytic converter is, and I think you'll be shocked at the statistics we have here in the city of Cupertino. The communication with the sheriff's office, there's some miscommunication out there in terms of how we get information, and so I want to go over kind of the best way to get a hold of us, what we don't monitor, next door. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Alert SCC as well. I know our fire partners talked about it earlier, and I do have a very nice video, short video that they put together that I think really highlights the reason why we want to sign up for Alert SCC. Hopefully you can see this. So I have another slide as well that kind of gives this information in a different format, but we can start at the top. So robberies, we have had this year 15 robberies. And what does that mean? Well, a robbery is a crime where somebody uses force or fear to take something from you, right? So for example, let's say that you leave your purse on a seat you're seated in now, you walk up to get something to drink and you come back and it's gone. That's a theft, right? Now, on the other hand, if you're seated and somebody comes up to you and says, hey, if you don't give me that purse, I'm gonna beat you up. Or worse yet, points a gun at you and says, give me your purse. That's a robbery. And that's what we call a personal crime. That's a serious crime. And so we track that every year to ensure that we're doing the best we can to minimize robberies. But unfortunately, this year we have had 15. Of those 15, we have resolved over half of those, meaning about 9 of those, we identified the suspects and took them into custody. The other ones, we do have some very strong leads. So in terms of how we're doing in robberies for the last 3 years, we're about average. Back in 2019, we saw 8. Residential burglaries, again, we do measure that closely, and I have some more data here that will kind of give you a breakdown of how these are being committed in this city. We have 51. If you compare that to last year, we had 82. Again, we're talking about January through September, as you see there in the graph. We had 82 last year. It's amazing because last year, right, many of us were home. We stayed home. And so last year, we actually saw a very low rate at the end of the year. So it started off last year with a small increase, but then towards the end of the year, it really dropped off because we were all staying home, right? If you remember, March is when we all decided to stay home because of COVID. But this year at 51 is actually really good. It's really good. I can tell you that we're working hard on this, making sure that we do everything we can to capture these folks that are doing this in our community. What we know is that if we capture 1 or 2 of these guys, they're probably responsible for the significant portion of the ones that are being committed in town. So I would say out of these 51, we probably have a handful of people that are doing this. So if you capture 1 or 2, we're going to see a dramatic drop in crime. Commercial burglaries, those are business establishments that have been burgled. You'll see that we had 53 this year. Last year, we did see an increase in this category. A lot of businesses shut their doors because of COVID. And early on, right around March, April, May of 2020, unfortunately, we did see some businesses being victimized, again, because they knew no one was inside, and so they took advantage of that opportunity and ended up stealing items from our business community. Vehicle burglaries. Now, here's the big one. In 2019, 320 of these, right? Most of these, I would say a good 90 to 95% of these in 2019 occurred in our shopping centers. They continue to occur in our shopping centers. And then in 2020, we saw 155. Well, our businesses were closed, right? And so the crooks had nowhere to go to break into cars because we weren't grouping ourselves together in shopping centers. So what we started to see is crooks actually driving in the neighborhoods and breaking into cars in the neighborhood. And again, as I said, about 90% of the vehicle burglaries in 2019 were in shopping centers. You go to 2020, and then it was more like 80 to 90% occurred in our residential neighborhoods. And so we were focusing our efforts in our neighborhoods. And this year we're at 99. We have some strategies we're deploying out there to try to curb this. We'll continue to work on that. Grand thefts, 126 already this year. And you'll see what that really looks like here in another couple slides. Auto theft, that means cars that were stolen in the city, 49. Many of these are because
when we get burgled, the crooks take the keys and take your car at the same time, right? And so it is important that you secure your keys when you're not at home and you're leaving your car at home. You know, put them in a drawer or something like that. Don't make it obvious, because we are seeing crooks that are breaking into a home, and after they take jewelry, laptops, electronics, small electronics, we are seeing that they're looking for car keys to take the car that's in the driveway. Vandalism, we saw 65. Identity theft, fraud, and 95. A good portion of the ID theft and fraud is related to mail theft. And so please, I ask that if you aren't picking up your mail soon after it's delivered, please do so. Please do so, especially as we get into the holiday season here, right? Many of us, I can tell you, my wife orders from Amazon probably 3 or 4 times a week, and we get packages at home. And many of us do that as well. And so it's important to make sure that you pick up that package, the mail, as soon as you can, because there are crooks out there that are driving around looking for the opportunity to take a package. Some advice on that is if you have a neighbor that you communicate with frequently, let them know, hey, can you pick up that package, or at least can you put it in the backyard or hold on to it, or have a plan for that, because towards the end of this year, we're going to see an increase in that crime. And again, we are working on some covert operations that hopefully will bring that category down. But domestic violence, we did see 45 this year. Assaults, 20, and then sex crimes, 16. The category sex crimes is really anything and everything from, let's say, child pornography case to somebody who gets sexually assaulted. I will note that these crimes are all between people that know each other. We don't have somebody running around committing a sexual assault on residents. So these are crimes that have been brought to our attention where either relationships went sideways or there was some kind of relationship between the victim and the suspect. Here's another way to look at it. So again, January through September 2020, you compare that to January to September 2021. Robberies were down 6%. Residential burglaries were down 38%. We're comparing apples to apples here, right? What we're saying is, hey, listen, the end of the year is not here yet, but for now, this is what it looks like. Our commercial burglaries, 38% drop from the same time last year. Vehicle burglaries, 36% drop. Grand theft, there it is, 97% increase. Auto theft, 26% increase. Vandalism, 27% increase. And then you look at the rest of those categories. Identity theft, 12% decrease. Domestic violence, 13% decrease. Assaults, 44% decrease. Sex crimes, 11% decrease. So if you kind of take a snapshot of this, the city of Cupertino continues to be a safe city. And even so, by looking at these numbers and comparing them to the year before. Cupertino residential burglary data. All right, so we're going to look at the data so that we have a sense of who's being victimized more so. This is just based on data. So what we know is that the detached single-family structure, so a home, if you will, we had 23 of those incidents. We had 6 townhomes that were burgled. We had 22 apartments for condominiums, right? The day of the week that these occurred, and this is the data that we know, is Friday we had 10, which is the highest number. Monday, none, right? I will note that this is only the data that we know. For example, if somebody went on vacation for a week, left on a Friday, came back Friday after, and said, hey, somebody broke into my house, took my stuff, then we start asking those questions, right? When did you leave? When was the last time you saw your items? When did you get back? And we try to narrow it down, but sometimes we can't because, again, there's no information other than I left Friday, I came back Friday, my stuff was gone. So we can't pinpoint the time or day that occurred. So this is based on data we know. Again, time of day. So when are these occurring? Early morning, 12 a.m. to 7 a.m., 20% of the time. The multiple days, time of day unknown, 41%. That is, again, we're going on vacation. We're going for a week, 2 weeks, maybe a weekend. and we come back only to realize that we've been burgled. And so we'll try to pinpoint that timeline. It becomes difficult for us because we just don't have that information. The method of entry, this means how are crooks coming into our homes? Well, I do want to note one particular category here, the open garage door, right? 22%. What does that mean, open garage door? Yeah, it does mean that we're leaving our garage doors open, right? And we're inviting people to come into our garage and take our bicycles, because that's probably the most common thing that the crooks are going to take at night. And bicycles, items that are small of value that's in your garage. And so I can tell you from personal experience, when we see our deputies see those garage doors wide open, we try to contact the owner. We do knock on the door, but we don't knock in a way that startles the homeowner. So I guess what I'm saying is we'll try, but given that it's 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning, we want to make sure that we don't startle you, which does happen. But that is a category that you can help us with. Make sure that when you go to bed, you close your garage door, you secure your windows, your doors, turn on your alarm, right? If you have a home alarm, you can certainly turn it on to engage the sensors, but maybe not the motion detector. The motion detector inside the home, you could disable that. You have the sensors, you go to bed in the morning, you turn off your alarm. And that helps because if somebody tries to open your door, your alarm will go off when you're asleep. And that's a really good way to make sure that you protect yourself and your family. So here's the map of where these residential burglaries are occurring this year. And what we typically see is that these occur near highways or main roads. Don't get me wrong, they do occur in the neighborhood, but typically we see these right off the highway. Obviously, near the highway, it makes it easy for them to get off, get into the neighborhood, get into the area, commit the crime, and jump right back on the highway. And so I'm going to share a little secret with you guys. We do concentrate our patrol efforts in areas that we believe crooks are coming in from, right? And so sometimes you see us on Homestead, Stevens Creek Boulevard, right? De Anza, the main arteries to the city. But this is a really good map to look at because one of the things we do is we try to understand if there are patterns, right? And as you can see here, there really aren't any real patterns other than maybe the east part of Cupertino, just east of De Anza, there east of Stevens Creek and De Anza, perhaps. But there is no real pattern. Grand thefts, I talked about the increase in grand thefts. So what you'll see there is that we saw 126 grand thefts this year. You compare that to the last 2 years, you'll see the significant increase. And then to the right is the catalytic converter thefts. It's amazing that back in 2019, we only had 2 catalytic converter thefts. This year so far, we're at 73. Right? That is a significant jump. The type of vehicles that are being victimized are primarily Toyota Prius, right? Why? Anybody know why? Well, you have to understand what the catalytic converter does, right? So here's a picture of a catalytic converter. Essentially what it does is it pulls emissions from the engine, cleans it before it gets into the muffler and then out the exhaust pipe. And so when you have a hybrid, that catalytic converter is not being utilized as much as if you had, let's say, a suburban V8 vehicle or something that utilizes only gas, right? And so the crooks are smart, and we know they're smart. And what they're doing is they're targeting these hybrid cars, specifically Toyotas, because those metals that are inside that catalytic converter are more clean, if you will, more valuable to them. And so when they sell these catalytic converters, they can make anywhere between $200 to $300. The question is, how quickly can they steal this device? Wow, 30 seconds or so. I'm happy to say that we've arrested between 15 or 20 of these crooks already in town, in the city. But what we know is that other people keep coming in to steal these devices. And so we're recommending that if you do have a Toyota Prius, incidentally, has anybody been victimized on a catalytic converter? We got one gentleman in the back. Sorry about that. What we're recommending is if you have a Toyota Prius, just be extremely careful because, again, that's the number one vehicle we're seeing. Please park your vehicle inside your garage if you can. Lower your garage door. Okay. Park it in your garage. Make sure that you put it in a location in your car if you can't put it in the garage where it's hard to get under the vehicle. So maybe next to some bushes, perhaps put another car next to it. The crooks are lazy, so they're going to look for the vehicles that are easy to get under. If you have a motion sensor light, it's good to park your vehicle under that motion sensor light. There are some aftermarket devices out there where you can spend about $500 to have that catalytic converter reinforced so that it's difficult for the crooks to steal. But again, if you give them the opportunity, they're certainly going to get under your vehicle to steal that device. Here is the map for catalytic converter thefts so far this year. And again, what we do look at is there a pattern here? Are we looking at something where these crooks are coming into a specific neighborhood to steal these? And, you know, you could argue that perhaps the west, the Bub area, maybe we've had a little cluster there, but, you know, not really, not really. I can't tell you how many times a deputy's parked behind a car that, and again, 2, 3 in the morning, because usually this happens overnight. Deputy parks behind a car because the car's driver's door is open because somebody is working on a car late at night, only to realize that they're actually in the process of stealing the catalytic converter. And soon before we even make contact with that driver, that person jumps in the car and takes off. And so it is important that we do everything we can to try to curb that crime. Communication with the sheriff's office. A couple of things here. A lot of information in this slide, but our non-emergency number is 299-2311-408. Emergency number is 911. You could also text 911. County Communications has done a really good job with being responsive to this request. And so certainly if you have a circumstance where you cannot call us, please text 911. Our administrative offices are located here in Cupertino, off of Deanza and Prospect. Next door. So the way that Next Door works is we don't have access to the conversation that's occurring in your neighborhood. So if somebody's posting a video, a photo of something suspicious out there, we're not going to know that unless somebody calls us. Same thing goes for the city of Cupertino, right? So if you post information in there making reference to something in the city of Cupertino, they're not going to know that unless somebody lets them know. It's a closed system. And then we talked about Alert SCC. I'm going to show a real quick video. I know I'm running out of time here, but I did want to show this video.
The most important thing during a large disaster, a large wildfire, is for the public to be informed so that they can make the right decisions. So we are going to work to get that information to the public as quickly as possible, but we can only do that if people have registered for Alert SCC. Alert SCC is the communication system that's used in Santa Clara County for all agencies to get information to the public irrespective of where they are. During a large wildfire, we're going to communicate with you using both low-tech and high-tech tools. So low-tech, the sheriff's office, law enforcement will be driving door-to-door if necessary, using loudspeakers to notify the public. We'll also be using high-tech tools like emergency alerts sent directly to your mobile devices, and we'll also be using reverse 911 technology to make calls to your traditional landline telephone, in addition to posting things via social media and via our website.
We start evacuation warnings immediately through Alert SCC, reverse 911, and that's going to be one of the first actions we're taking to try and get residents out of the way of a rapidly expanding wildfire.
To sign up for Alert SCC, residents can go to alertscc.com. There they'll be asked for some basic contact information, and they can then select how they would like to receive those messages from the fire department, the police department, and other agencies.
It is extremely important that we sign up to get alerts from Alert SCC. Anytime we are involved in a critical incident where we have to shut down roads, maybe we're doing an active search for someone, we will send out information on Alert SCC. We commonly use that platform. So we're asking that if you haven't already signed up for Alert SCC, please do so as soon as possible so that we can get you the information that you need to continue to keep yourself safe and help us keep you safe. With that being said, I thank you for your time. Do we have time for questions? Excellent. Before I start taking questions, I do want to introduce Lieutenant Neil Valenzuela, who's to my right. He's going to help me answer some of these questions. He helps me manage the West Valley Patrol Division, and so in my absence, he takes over. Go ahead.
Okay, so the texting 911 is new to me, but my question about it is that just in your jurisdiction or is that everywhere? Like if I was in Santa Barbara right now and I needed to do that,
Good
would it
question.
work?
This is only particular to Santa Clara County. So if you're out of Santa Clara County or right at the borders of Santa Clara County, you may not get a dispatcher depending upon which cell tower you hit. So this is only within Santa Clara County.
So I actually have the same question. Do you text 911 or just do 911 on text?
So the phrase that they have is call it when you can, text when you can't. So if you in a worse situation, you're in your house and there's somebody in your house, go lock yourself in a room, start texting 911. The first thing the dispatcher is going to come back to you and ask, can you call 911? If you say no, they're going to ask, what's your emergency, what's your location after that. You can also take pictures on there if you need to and also text them as well.
Okay, and most criminals, are they local or they're from out of town?
What we've had from the number of arrests, it's usually out of town for property crimes anyways.
Oh, all right. Only 2 questions. I usually get at least a dozen. Anything at all. Okay.
So some of the situations that we have people like wandering around our neighborhood, opening up our mailboxes, or having some stranger cruising around our neighborhood. So usually when we call the police, what would they do? Because you really cannot hold, because you can only see them from the video, from the home security system.
Very good question. So we would love to have those kind of calls so that we can get there when the crime is happening. Mail theft is a very common crime in the city. The crooks use that information to then commit identity theft. They open up credit cards under your name, or they just basically steal your identity with your mail. So give us a call when it's happening. Our deputy will go out. They'll make contact with the individual. And if they are found in possession of mail, they'll make an arrest for possession of mail.
Okay, thank you.
The converter theft, does it require more than one person to steal? And how long does the average time take for the thief?
Okay. So we have arrested groups of 2 and 3s, but we've also arrested individuals who are out there with a jack and a hacksaw, basically, and they can get in and out pretty fast within seconds. They'll jack up the car, get underneath it, cut it out, and then they'll come down, put it down, and they're gone. So.
Hi, Captain and Deputy. Good evening. What about the recent law, the policy change, where everything is called misdemeanor? People could just havoc the Walgreens and things like that. They just take anything under $750 or $250, and so those are pretty scary if you're shopping or if you're in that area, and they get away, and there's no bail policy. Could you please help clarify that and give us some peace of mind?
I think what you're asking is, how are we addressing the thefts that are potentially occurring in like Walgreens, Target?
They're called as light misdemeanors and not crime or not theft. They're let go. That's what you
Yeah, so the category would be a misdemeanor, right?
Yeah.
So I can tell you we have an extremely good working relationship with our business community. And so what we do when somebody does, because it does happen, where crooks come into the city, run into a business, grab a bunch of stuff, we've seen this on the news, and then run out, jump into a car, and take off. I can't tell you how many times we have arrested people because of the relationship that we have, whether it's Target, Ulta, right, and others, because they give us what we need in terms of video, description, right away. Now, once we make the arrest, of course, we have to understand what they did so that we can charge them appropriately, right? And so what we do on our end is we do everything we absolutely can to make sure that they go to jail and spend time in jail for what they did. Now, the district attorney's office is the one ultimately that makes that decision what to charge them. And so the space you're talking about has to do with some reforms back in 2014 under Prop 47, where it changed some laws to make it a little bit more lenient on certain crimes related to property, right? Has that made a difference? I can tell you that we've arrested the same people over and over for some of these crimes. And sometimes it is a little disheartening, but our staff, they're true professionals. We continue to chase them down and arrest them for what they do to our residents. And so by and large, we have not seen a problem with that. Again, it's because of those relationships, and it's because of the support we have from the city council on policing, the number of deputies that are out there providing service to the residents, that we're able to provide that kind of follow-up and investigative lead to arrest those folks. Yeah, good question, though. Yes, sir?
On the catalytic converter thefts, can you target the fence, where they're taking them? Is there a way of getting to the bottom of that?
So that's a good question. We find out that they're not taking them to like a legitimate recycling shop. In fact, most recycling places in Santa Clara County do not accept catalytic converters. They're breaking them down for the raw materials, whether it's the platinum and the other metals that are inside, and then they're selling those materials as bulk. So those are the hard parts we're trying to get into and trying to find out where they're breaking these things apart. But they're not going to a recycle shop and turning them in. So.
I will also add that law enforcement as a whole, we are targeting those organizations that are buying these. So to answer your question directly, yeah, we're working on that. We have made a lot of arrests in that space. What we've learned is, believe it or not, is we catch a group buying these things, another group pops up somewhere else. And so we continue to work on that problem from that root cause issue there, yeah.
A lot of people have Ring doorbells or video surveillance systems, kind of on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being super valuable and 1, not so much. How useful is that kind of footage to you guys in trying to solve a problem, solve a crime?
Yeah, we use it a lot, and it's extremely useful for us. We'll go out to the house and we'll try to collect some other kind of evidence, whether it's a fingerprint or DNA evidence. But when you have that video of that person and they're saying, I don't know how my fingerprint got there, and they're on camera coming in there, we have a lot of the evidence to prove the fact that crime was committed by that person.
Yeah, I'll also add that the video that you share with us, again, we're talking about a crime was committed. We share it with other agencies in this area, right? I think we've talked about the fact that crime has no boundary. And so the video you share with us, we share it with, let's say, Sunnyvale Police Department, Los Gatos, San Jose, and we say, hey, does anybody know who these people are? And that's how we make these cases. So it is important that you share that information if you feel comfortable sharing it to solve that crime. Yeah. Well, that's it. I thank you all for staying towards the end here and listening to our conversation. Hope we get together again soon. Have a good evening. Tom, it's all yours.
Right. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I want to thank the mayor, the council members, the speakers, and everybody who put up the booth there and shared information with our community, and and all of you here, this evening, sharing your evening with us and learning about public safety. Really appreciate your time, and I hope this session was useful to you. And if you have any questions, please shoot out an email. All the commissioners' emails are on our website, cupertino.org. And thank you, Tom, for making this a big success. Yep. Thank you, and have a great night, and drive safe.